In my last video, I have made a Ghibli-inspired office/sewing room, which I'm so excited about. But obviously the one thing we're still missing is a Ghibli-inspired dress. So now this is not my first rodeo. I have tried to make the Sophie Hatter dress twice already. And if you're familiar with my channel, you know that I do repeatedly do the same things because I'm never happy with what I make and then I just make it again, and usually end up not being happy and make it again. In the past, I have made the Sophie Hatter dress in a sagey green. That was actually one of my earlier sewing projects and I genuinely loved it. I made it based on a pattern that was specifically for a Sophie costume. It had a side zipper and I genuinely hate side zippers. I feel like because there is kind of like such an angle to my waist here, they always get stuck and then I end up being sweat soaked by the time I am dressed because I'm just like there fighting the side zipper, and it didn't have pockets. And also, even though I love sage green, so like this light green, on me, I don't know. I often feel like I need something that's a little bit more saturated and darker, so it didn't look amazing on me, or at least so I told myself. Fast forward, actually one of my earlier videos on this channel made a historically inspired Sophie Hatter dress, messed that up big time. So I think because I ended up not having enough fabric to make a long sleeve, so I made quite short sleeves, and then it didn't really feel like Sophie Hatter at all. I also had to put these laces and trims on it to hide some of the staining. That one I made blue, and I have this love-hate relationship with blue where I keep trying to like blue but always end up disliking it on me. Yeah, so that is my two Sophie Hatter dresses I have made in the past, and both of them didn't really work and I ended up selling them and they found a new home, and I'm sure people love them, but they just weren't for me. So I thought we're gonna try again. And this time we're going dark saturated green because based on what I just told you, I think this color suits me probably okay. So obviously this wouldn't be a video of mine if it wasn't at least slightly cursed already. Bought this fabric and cheaped out a little bit because I, as you know, I've just moved in here, currently renovating everything. Lots of bills, lots of money being spent on stuff. So I didn't want to spend like £100 on linen. So I thought I'd get myself cotton because surely that's fine. And found this cotton which has like a linen texture. And I thought, you know, that's gonna look nice. Turns out it is not cotton with a linen texture. It is cotton with a linen texture print. So it feels kind of like really soft and kind of bed sheety, which isn't a bad thing because on this channel we like to work with bed sheets, but also not really what I was hoping for. Kind of considered whether I should dye it just so it's not just one side green, but that felt like a lot of effort. So worst case, I can dye it once it is already assembled, I guess. It is what it is. This is the fabric I have. I really didn't want to spend £100 on linen, so we're just gonna try to make this work. And because it is quite soft and drapey, I think this will actually flow quite nicely, and it will probably be a really nice spring dress, so it's ideal that we're making this in December. Then House Moving Castle does look very springy, so maybe that is just what we're going for, even though I might not be able to wear it without a very thick cardigan and lots of petticoats for a while. Pattern wise, what we're gonna do is we're gonna use the Kalina blouse from Stitchmaiden. If you're not aware of Stitchmaiden, they're a really lovely company, make these amazing sewing patterns, and they have a step-by-step guide on what you need to do, which I usually ignore. As for the skirt, I'm thinking because the fabric is so drapey, I'm going to make a circle skirt, and usually I use a pattern which I just traced from this skirt, which is I think the Winter Wonderland skirt from Emmy Designs' previous autumn-winter collection, which is one of my favorite skirts. Like, you can't see, so you have to trust me, but it's the perfect length. It sits flat on the waist, so I'm going to extend the waist a little bit and gather it because I just think with this fabric it's gonna look nicer. I don't usually gather my waist these days when I make skirts, so it would be a nice change considering I mainly do the same thing all the time. As always, when I want to come up with a design for sewing, I sat down and I drew it up in Procreate first. So this is what I came up with. I adapted the sleeve to be a little bit more like the style from the Kalina blouse over what Sophie wears in the movie, because her sleeves are quite slim and I think this would be quite an interesting design. Other than that, I made the skirt quite full because we're working with a circle skirt and it's going to be gathered at the waist. I did add a little waistband to this. As you can tell, I drew this up before the fabric arrived, so I expected the color to be slightly different, but you know, I can only blame myself here because I cheaped out and I could have ordered a sample. But generally, this is the design and I think it looks really cute. But enough talking, let's cut out the fabric. everything's cut out, and it was such a tight squeeze. I actually had to shorten the sleeve a little bit to make it work at all. And at this point, I am terrified that I've just forgotten something again, because this happened in the past, as you know. But there is basically no fabric left, so I already had to use scraps to make the waistband. But it's all cut out, and I'm going to start with the skirt, because that is always the easiest part, but also then it has a little bit of time to hang out, because it's a circle skirt. Because I would like to hem it by the end of the day, but if I make it first, then maybe it will hang out throughout the day. I just about managed to get the front panel and the side panel attached, and then the 2 back panels. And I've started putting the pockets on, but unfortunately, there is also a puppy now who wants to go out, so I'll have to take a break. You want to go out? Do you want to go out? These are the pattern pieces for the front of the bodice. This large bit is going to be gathered into the yoke, and then this is the collar bit. So I decided to break the yoke in 2, which is more according to the Sophie Hatter costume, whereas the Kalina pattern just had 1 piece of yoke, but I just felt like if I want to put buttons here, it will look silly if there's not any form of like opening underneath it. But I've decided to not keep the opening in the collar, because I want to have a back opening, which is what the pattern suggests, and it ties with a bow in the back. Because in previous versions, when I had the front opening to the collar, it always stuck open a little bit, and then I had to put like hooks and eyes on it to keep it closed, and it just always looked a little bit silly. So I'm hoping with this, it's just going to solve the issue and not just look silly because there's an opening, but then there's not an opening in the collar. And then this is just going to be gathered, and then the front is done. Hello from the ironing board. I thought this is a good opportunity to just chat a little bit to you guys while I do my ironing. I've got all of my pieces that have to be nicely pressed before I can sew them together. So as I'm filming this, we've been living in the flat for about a month, and things are going okay. I mean, moving into a new place and renovating is always quite slow, but I managed to get the living room painted quite quickly, but then the ceiling is in a little bit worse condition than we hoped for. So now we have to wait for someone to come in and properly secure the cracks in the ceiling, and then plaster it and then paint it, which is why I ended up doing the renovation of this room here first. I started working from home on the 1st of October because I did 3 years of lab-based work for my PhD, and now I've got 6 months to write up my thesis, and it's just been absolutely glorious. I love working from home. I feel like, obviously, I'd rather not work, but I don't actually mind working from home. All of the things that make my life difficult aren't there anymore. I don't know how to say it. It just feels like, even though I really don't mind my job, like my boss is fine, the people I work with are all really lovely. I have been working at the University of Glasgow, or have been at the Uni of Glasgow studying for 6 years now. So it just feels like the Uni of Glasgow is basically my home. I know people there, you know, I know the janitors, I know the cleaning staff. I can't actually complain because everyone's really, really lovely. But just leaving the house and going into Glasgow every single day, and also because Jack works such late hours, I then have to wait for him to pick me up or pay £10 to get back home by train, which is just too expensive and also takes ages. So often, if I have to wait for Jack, I'm just out of the house for 12 hours. And that just seems a little bit extreme considering I'm only really working for 8 hours. So working from home, if I work 8 hours, that means I suddenly have an extra 4 hours in the day to do with as I please. which is really nice. It just feels like I've got so much free time now. And after I finish writing up my PhD for the day, I can paint the hallway for another 2 hours, or like mainly this room was painted just after working hours because I don't feel completely drained after every single day. It suits my lifestyle more. I was a little bit worried that I'd feel lonely because obviously I don't really talk to anyone all day. I will like send my mom voice messages. I'm not big on calling, but I talk to my friends, mainly from Germany. Shout out to Kara, Kiki, and Chrissy. I do talk to my friends online and obviously talk to my pets, talk to the neighbors. And I feel like that is as much socializing as I really need because I'm not a very social person. And then when Jack comes home, I'm actually really excited that he's home. I mean, not that I wasn't excited before, but it just feels like if you've spent all day talking to people, being surrounded by people, and then you come home and there is another person, it sometimes can be a little bit draining if you're someone who just needs a lot of me time. Being alone all day and then Jack comes home, it just makes more sense for our relationship because then I can focus more on him and, you know, talk to him. So yeah, I highly recommend working from home to anyone who is socially awkward like me. It does definitely improve life quality by quite a bit. So life has just been a little bit easier lately, and that's nice because I feel like the last 3 years were just not that great. So I think I deserve I deserve to feel better. And yes, I'm not even sure what to tell you guys because I feel like normally whenever I talk to you guys while ironing, I just complain about how much I hate my PhD, but now I don't even mind it that much. I feel like if I could have just done a home-based PhD of just like reading and writing for 4 years, like maybe I would have enjoyed the entire thing. Like if I could do a PhD that's just home-based and I can just like sit in front of my laptop all day and just research, I would do another PhD, I'm not gonna lie. Like, this is great. I mean, there's a reason I went into science. I actually don't mind research. I just don't like the lab work. So maybe I'm just in the wrong field, but I guess we've known that for a long time, haven't we? But anyways, all of this is now ironed, which means I can finally put the bodice together. So 2 things that I've altered from the pattern. I've got these little straps because originally I wanted to make a waistband just like a little bit wider one that is just one piece that I can just tie around, but I didn't have enough fabric left. So I only had enough to make these really thin straps, which wouldn't look as nice to be like just here because it's too tiny. So I was thinking that I'm going to attach them to the side, which is what I've done for some of my more like loosely fitting pinafore dresses. And if I fit them a little bit higher, which is what one of my simple retro dresses has, I can then kind of like tie it over like this. Stop beeping, please, I'm talking. And around the back and then to the front and tie it here, which looks really cute on my simple retro dress. So I'm just hoping that maybe that works the same here. On the other hand, the pattern comes with these little wings for the shoulders. So now that's not part of the original Sophie Hatter design, but you know how I've got my little wing jumpers that I absolutely love. So I'm thinking I might try to see what it looks like because I think they could be really cute and kind of like give a little bit of a lift to the shoulder. I'll try it and I'll see how it goes. But enough chatting, we have to actually do some more sewing. So this is where we're at. The bodice is assembled and the skirt is assembled other than the hem still needing hemming. Now we just have to gather the top into the skirt. So now normally I kind of like my skirts to have a waistband like this because I feel like it always looks a little bit clumsy to have a gathered top going into a gathered skirt. But that is actually what Sophie's costume looks like in the movie. So me not having enough fabric to make a waistband is screen accurate. My little wings aren't, but they are so cute, aren't they? The issue with this is that I need the waist to still be wide enough to go over my shoulders, which is kind of like the Letty dress that I normally talk about on here. It's not fitted. It will be fitted by using these little straps, which have completely disappeared. Here it is. Fun fact, because I always talk about the Letty dress on here. The Letty dress is named after Sophie's sister, Letty, because I was doing the Sophie skirt, which was based on the original Sophie Hatter costume that I made ages ago. And then I came up with this whole ambitious idea that I should start selling clothes, and I would make the Sophie skirt, and then I would make the Letty dress, and then I had this whole idea for a Martha ensemble, which is the other sister that is mentioned in the book that is not in the movie. So that is why the Letty dress is called the Letty dress, because the Sophie skirt was very plain, and then the Letty dress was a little bit more frilly, and Martha, being the witch, I wanted to make a little bit more Victorian with like big poofy sleeves. But that obviously never happened. That is kind of like why the Letty dress is called what it is. So we're done with sewing, and it's gotten quite dark because it gets really dark really early in Scotland now. But the dress turned out so cute. So this time I'm really happy with the color, but obviously the fabric could have been a little bit heavier. I feel like the skirt, I don't know, it just feels a bit more bed sheety. We're not scratching the wall, Tilly. I've just painted the wall. That is what currently was in the budget. Make sure to like and subscribe and comment on this video so that the next time we sew something, we have a bit of bigger budget to buy nicer fabric again. But enough talking, let's turn myself into Sophie Hatter yet again. So what do we think? I'm actually really happy with how it turned out. I was a bit worried about the wings because obviously they're not on the original design, and I thought maybe it would make it feel a little bit too costumey. But because I made them quite small, I think they're just kind of like the same way they are on my jumpers, where they're just adding to the silhouette without like being obnoxious. But I do think this dress would have benefited from being made from proper linen. I don't mind as much on the bodice, but I feel like the skirt just doesn't have a lot of body to it, and I might have to wear it with a thicker petticoat to give it a bit more swoosh. And obviously because I put the little ties on the side, I might actually have to take the apron off to show you this. So because of the way I tie this, if I tie it back, it kind of pulls the side seams back as well. So then the pockets end up being slightly towards the back. But if I was to tie the other way around, then the back would just be really tight. Yes, it's not ideal, and I would have done a normal waistband that is just like completely detached, like Little Women atelier dresses do, if I had had a little bit more fabric. But generally speaking, I think from then tying it back, it then pulls the front straight, so the skirt ends up looking a little bit more Edwardian. And it's also really nice for the pigeon breast, because I don't normally like that style. From the way this sits now, I kind of have a little bit of volume right here. And because it pulls the sides straight, I still have the silhouette I like. So I don't know, I'm actually quite happy with how it turned out. And obviously it's green, which matches the room and matches the entire flat, so that's always a win. We're coming to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed this and the first sewing adventure in the new flat. And I'm already thinking about what I can sew next, because hopefully, I mean, there's still a lot to paint and a lot to do, but hopefully I'll still find the time to also do a little bit of sewing. And it's getting really cold, so I might start working on some winter projects. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye! Archie, what do we say to people who follow and like and subscribe?